Do you ever find yourself scrolling through a Harper's Bazaar article entitled 30 Designer Handbags That Will Stand the Test of Time? And while scrolling, you experience minor heart palpitations from the price tags on all of these bags, but instead of closing out of the article like a normal person, your toxic trait starts to rear its ugly head and you find yourself saying, I can make that. I started this project by doing a visual deconstruction of the purse. I've never seen one of these bags in person, but with the power of the internet, I'm confident that at least the main pieces are mostly correct. The body of the purse is comprised of a circular bottom and a front and back panel. These front and back pieces fold over to create the closure at the top, so they need to be decently long. These pieces appear to be connected by the two parts of the shoulder strap, one long and one short. Finally, for what appears to be no other reason than aesthetics, the purse has two long pieces of leather that wrap around the body. Just considering the materials that will stay on the bag, this project cost about $30. But if you don't have any of the tools like hole punches and X-Acto knives, you're looking at around $75. I created a pattern out of cardstock that ended up being completely useless because I ultimately based every dimension for the purse off of this bowl that I have in my kitchen. After cutting out the bottom, I traced 1/2 inch of allowance where the seam line will be to hopefully make the base slightly smaller in the end. Using some dusty geometry skills, I measured the bottom of the front and back pieces to be the exact circumference of the seam line on the base, and the heights of these pieces were arbitrary so long as they were decently tall. These two pieces were originally the front and back panels, but one side had a big wrinkle in it that I didn't know how to get out, so instead of wasting time doing that, I thought I was being smart and glued the two pieces together. The wrinkle's definitely gone, but unfortunately this decision will come back to haunt me. I followed suit with the bottom piece and doubled it up for no apparent reason. Moving on, I made a rough measurement of the length needed for the longest piece, which will be the one that wraps around the whole bag. I cut out 1 1/4 inch strip and a 1 1/2 inch strip to lay over it because my initial method for making this 3D shape was to squish the wider piece like so. After giving it a little glue, it was set aside to dry. So, admittedly, I was starting to get a little bit worried about how I was going to attach the bottom of the purse to the two walls or the two sides, and I was just gonna kind of punch holes and stitch and hope that the fabric folded up nicely. And then in the middle of freaking out and like trying to plan how to do that, I was like, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be nice to be able to see the bottom of the purse? And then I remembered that the internet existed, so I found a picture of the bottom of the purse. And now I know what I'm gonna do. I basically need to cut out a thin strip of fabric that is the exact circumference of this circle, and then attach it, and then I'm gonna fold it, it's a thing, and it'll help me attach the bottom of the purse. But because I'm changing that method from what I had originally thought I was gonna do, this piece that I layered on top is too small, I think. Probably. So I'm gonna do a bad thing and see if I can tear it off. But I actually ended up leaving the inner layer on because I honestly think I just forgot about it. And don't tell this version of Laura, but I put a lot of work into what won't actually be used as the base of the purse. Alright, so yesterday I got a little frustrated while I was working on the bottom of the purse because I needed to sew up this part to create one continuous circle, and the thread that Hobby Lobby recommended doesn't work in that it doesn't burn. Like, you've probably seen a leatherworking video where like they burn off the thread to finish it. Well, this doesn't burn. And also I did some research after that, and apparently you're not even supposed to use cotton on leather because it can like wear down the material. So thanks Hobby Lobby for that. And by the way, I tried to Google that while in the Hobby Lobby leather section, and there's no service, conveniently, in Hobby Lobby. So I tried, it didn't work out. But luckily, I had some heavy-duty polyester thread hanging around, and I stitched the bottom of the purse with this to see if it would hold. Unfortunately, the thread was made for much softer materials and didn't hold the leather as well as I would have liked, so it was off to Hobby Lobby to collect waxed polyester thread. And I guess I have to give Hobby Lobby a little credit back because this was also in the leather section. I just happened to choose the least expensive option the first time around. After undoing some work, I checked to make sure it would burn to seal the stitches and resewed the base. Alright, my hands are very waxy, but I am much happier with this thread because it holds the leather together way better than the white thread did, and I think it's going to give the purse just that little bit higher quality that I'm hoping for. From here, I'm going to go ahead and take these two pieces and see if I can make the outside of the purse. I'm going to kind of stitch up the sides together, then I'll glue that onto the base. And then from there, it's just adding the cool wraparound strap things and finishing up final details. So, hopefully this works. The front and back panels are attached by strips on either side of the purse that connect into the shoulder strap, and here I'm creating the shorter side piece. My plan was to glue the side piece to the front and back panels and then punch the holes to stitch everything together, but once I sat down to actually punch the holes, it was way harder than I had planned, and that I had to hit the hole punch tool at least 10 times per punch, and if I managed to actually get the tool through the leather, getting it back out was nearly impossible. To maybe make the process a little easier, my mistake finally caught up with me, and I ripped off the inner lining of the bag and threw away 2 days worth of work in the process. While that was super frustrating, I came back the next day armed with a plan. Ripping off the inner lining of leather left behind a bunch of glue residue, so instead of cleaning that off, I lined the purse again. But with soft leather this time. Yay, suede. I also found out that punching through any amount of leather is much easier on concrete because it provides a lot less bounce than the carpet I was previously working on. But that didn't stop me from being bad at using a hammer. So dramatic. Anyway, one side of the purse is finally sewn together. Alright, so to make the strip that connects the purse on the other side, I need to make an extra long piece because this one is also going to double as like kind of the crossbody strap. However, I don't actually have an insanely long piece of leather, so what I'm going to do is take these are the only scraps I have left of the leather, by the way, and I'm going to connect them by making a backing in scrap leather that I already had from like kind of a miscellaneous bag. And it's not quite the same texture, but it's close enough, and I'll be sure to put it like on the back or like on the inside so it won't be showing as much. However, I don't know what these scraps were from because they all look suspiciously like knives. So anyway, story time. My husband and I went to Target this night, and while we were wandering through the fall decor, 2 teenage girls, one being pushed in a buggy by the other, naturally, came up to me and goes, "Excuse me, do you have a boyfriend or a husband?" And I replied, "Yes, this is my husband," while gesturing to him. And then the girl says, "Oh, okay, well, I just wanted to tell you that my grandpa thinks you're cute. He's kind of a player." And then they just ran off into the fluorescent sunset. A quick survey of the scene revealed not a single grandpa in sight, so we were thoroughly confused. Is there really a grandpa? If so, is he actually a player? Did I just get hit on by 2 high school girls? Does this have anything to do with my hairstyle? We will never know. And in case you were wondering what we bought at Target, it was Nerf guns. Ah! Oh my gosh! Oh no! When it was finally time to put the bottom on the bag, it just refused to fit no matter what I did. So I removed the attachment strip and glued it onto a smaller circumference so that I could trim the edges down later. But then I had to fix it one more time because I glued down the wrong side of the strip. Then at last, the bottom was in, so I punched holes in both the bag and the bottom piece that wraps around it before hand stitching everything into place. I also experimented with filling this bottom piece with hot glue that I had pre-molded so that the leather might better hold this 3D shape. Okay, so this is what I have of the bag so far, and I am very tempted to stop here just based on how challenging this was to apply. But actually, I think I've come up with a pretty solid method of attaching this, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the other wraparound thing because I want this to look as close as possible to the original. And so basically what that entails is I need to punch holes in the other side of this kind of wraparound strap and then kind of place it, tack it on very lightly so that I can mark where I want the holes to be on the actual bag itself. Take the wraparound thing off, punch those holes, and then put it back, stitch everything on. It's gonna be a lot of back and forth, but I think that's the easiest way to do it. But before I can do that, I need to decide what the final height of my bag is gonna be, and then I can do the wraparound, and then after that, I will finally finish the crossbody strap by continuing to punch holes all the way down it. I have a buckle to put on this side, and yeah. And then after that, I think we'll have a bag. To trim the top down to the correct shape, I basically chose the center height that I wanted, with no regard to the actual height of the Alexander McQueen bag, I might add, and then trimmed off the excess leather in a curved shape. Both the front and back pieces fold in, but the back piece folds across the entire opening, whereas the front only folds about halfway. Then I continued on with my method of punching holes in each piece separately before stitching them together. In the middle of stitching the long wraparound piece, I noticed that it was laying super funky and made the bag look cheaper than it already does, but I had used all of my hot glue to fill the bottom wraparound piece, so the next best thing was a fake flower stem. It still looks a little lumpy, but trust me, it's better than nothing. With the body of the purse finally done, I stitched the shoulder strap and started working on attaching the buckle. Please notice how I completely forgot to add the buckle right here. The very last thing to do was punch holes in the strap and add a small piece to hold it down. If you look closely at the buckle right here, you can see that I put it on backwards. And now, after more time than I care to admit, the purse is done. Apart from the low quality of leather, poor finishing on the edges, lumpy wraparound pieces, and the major design difference of the longer wraparound piece not connecting in the back, it honestly doesn't look that bad. I think that if you see the bag from at least 10 feet away while squinting, it just might pass for the Alexander McQueen designer bag. However, in the process of getting these clips, I realized one major problem. I kind of hate that the bag is a cylinder. It just rolls around and refuses to sit still while you're wearing it. But better to learn that with a $30 bag than with a $1,700 one.